in most instances, when people set goals, they usually don't get there because of various factors that kick in. Maybe the goal was too big for the person that they are at this point in time. They're still growing into it. But as long as you fall forward, it's an outright win. And I think that's something that's really, really important to acknowledge. And for anyone listening to this that set a goal for the year that fell short, as long as you've improved and you keep moving the needle along, it's still a win. It may not be the win that you want, but it's still a win. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show. Here we are at the back end of the year and it's time to reset those goals. Mitch and I are going to take a look back over the year that we've just had, but more importantly, what are some of the things that are shaping the game plan going forward so that you can be, I guess, given the benefit of a template to help you set your goals up for the year ahead. As always, don't just take notes, make sure you take plenty of action. And one thing I'd say at this time of the year, make sure you celebrate the wins that you've had. It'll give you fuel in the tank to tackle the opportunity that's coming right around the corner. See you in the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show with me, your host, Andrew Baxter, and as always, my offsider and co-host, Mitchell Laurential.
Mr. B, good to be back again. This is the fifth time we're about to run this episode, and for good reason, because we're going to be talking about New Year goals, new you, new resolutions, new everything.
Pivotal as we click over the back end of the year and we get ready to embrace that which is ahead. It is a process. It's a sort of Control-Alt-Delete starting at zero, and what would you like the year ahead to look like, which, as you rightly say, this is the fifth time.
I think it's the fifth time. But look, we're in the midst of silly season right now, late December, so pertinent conversation because as soon as we tick over into January 1, everything starts again, Control-Alt-Delete, as you like to say, and we go again, right?
Too right. And look, for anyone thinking, oh, I've been through this process before, congratulations. It means you've lived another year, which is a wonderful thing to celebrate. And secondly, repetition is the mother of all skills. So, yeah, the processes that I'm sure we're going to cover in here are going to be much the same. Maybe the colour around them is going to change because there's another 12 months of life experience and learning experiences that we can ingrain in that we run through. So it's always very, very exciting to see where we're at. So where are we starting today?
Well, let's start with not necessarily looking forward. Let's look in the rearview mirror for a moment's time, because I think if you are going to set goals or intentions, you've got to look back and say, this is what I have achieved. Congrats, well done to myself. This is what worked and what didn't work well. Let's interweave some personal examples, AB, so our listeners can get a feel. 2024, what worked well for you, what didn't?
Look, I think business-wise, there's some monumental goals that were kicked. We set an intention this year of publishing our book, The Wealth Playbook, just like this copy here.
Very nice.
And within 4 days, hit Amazon bestseller, #1 bestseller, which is beyond what my expectations were. And that's down to the work that we put in as a team. Things don't just happen. There's an enormous amount of preparatory work, like any goal, which are the doing steps, the monitoring steps, the changing, the enhancements, and the never giving up in some instances too. So, yeah, that was a really sweet one on behalf of the team. I know it's my mugshot that's on the cover of it, but ultimately I think our team delivered in spades in terms of what our intention was there. Equally, we rolled out a new business, a financial planning business this year, Your Money Advisor with an O, headed up by Madeline Morgan in our team. And again, that's a combination of an enormous amount of work behind the scenes. And then more generally speaking, across our business, we have had an incredible year, largely as a result of our clients, the success that they've had, referrals we've had from them, and that ability to promote the message out there a little bit further. So, business-wise has been insane. It really has this year. It's been a great, great year across the board.
Congrats, AB, and I think celebrating your wins is super important. For our listeners out there, though, probably the harder of the two is to go through what didn't work well and be really honest with yourself and say, I didn't get to this, I didn't get that, I didn't quite do this. Any in your example you'd be happy to share?
Look, there are plenty, and I'm a really transparent person. I think a couple of things from a personal perspective. One, I'm in the middle of a property transaction in Italy at the moment, which is stalled, and that's been immensely frustrating because I really could see that really pushing through in the way that it hasn't so far. And I say so far because it's an ongoing grapple at this point in time, negotiation-wise. And to an extent, and I'm not going to give myself a get-out-of-jail card here, the biggest difficulty, I think, when goal setting, you should only really set goals on something that you've got the control of the outcome from. In other words, your efforts will determine the outcome, good or bad. This is one that I don't have control of the outcome on. There's another party involved with the negotiation side of that, and so we're not there yet. I haven't given up on that one, but it's been quite frustrating because that's something that is probably outside of my personal decision framework normally, which is it's a business opportunity, it's a cash flow opportunity, it's got to stack up. It's been more of a lifestyle decision for my family. We went through this, I think, a couple of podcasts ago. So the framework I'm using for that is different to that which I'd normally use. And I think that's why it's been maybe a little frustrating, and maybe we haven't got the outcome there either. It's not been a straight, brutal business decision. But I'm pretty optimistic that'll come back. Second one for me, and a very personal one, is health and fitness. Had a really good run, and then it started to wobble a little bit, and I need to get that back on track. And I really found my groove. And then life, as we all know, has a habit of disrupting things. And for me, I think it's something I've got to go back and really revisit as to where that sits within my priority list. And when I sit here opposite the sculpted 6% body fat that I'm looking at the moment, it really does make me sort of dwell on that. But it's not just you. I see that with other clients. We've got clients that I spend a lot of time with. There's one in particular down in Sydney, Lindsay. I'm talking about that health and fitness is someone that really prides themselves on that, and it's a non-negotiable, and that's where I have to move that to into my personal list of priorities. So there's two that have been that are personal that haven't popped out the right way. What about yourself?
To be honest, I actually share much the same, and this is going to probably shock you a little bit, but as you know, I'm extremely fit, and I've always prided myself on doing that. This year, I took a mid-year break. I went to Europe at a milestone birthday, as you know. I indulged in pretty much every way you could possibly imagine. And when I got back, I just ran a marathon. I went to Europe. I got back, and I thought, okay, what's next? Maybe I could take my foot off the gas a little bit. And I probably have with my training. It's probably reduced by at least 2 or 3 sessions a week, which is very unlike me.
Yeah, it's not caught up with you yet.
Not yet. 10 years' time, it probably would. But I think I'm at the point now where I'm like, right, I've had that sort of 3 or 4 month break in my life. For once in the last 10 years, I've finally taken a break and not gone crazy all the time. But now's the time I need to ramp back up and set a new goal, which will likely be a marathon in May in Noosa. That's my thing. Second to that for me was reading. Anyone knows that's been listening to this that I've been trying to really read books as much as I can. And every year I've added 2 to the annual list. So 8 books, 10 books, 12 books this year.
Fantastic.
Didn't hit it this year. Just didn't have the time. I had other priorities, health and fitness.
What did you hit, just out of interest?
In terms of goals?
No, how many did you get through?
I got through 9.
Okay, which is an improvement on the 8, which is where you started from.
Correct.
So you've fallen forward.
I have. 9's better than 0.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think if you set yourself big goals, even if you fall short of them, and look, in most instances when people set goals, they usually don't get there because of various factors that kick in. Maybe the goal was too big for the person that they are at this point in time, and they're still growing into it. But as long as you fall forward, it's an outright win. And I think that's something that's really, really important to acknowledge. And for anyone listening to this that set a goal for the year that fell short, as long as you've improved and you keep moving the needle along, it's still a win. It may not be the win that you want, but it's still a win. And I think mentally it's really, really important to see it that way.
Totally.
And audiobooks while you're running might be a way for you to jam a little bit more in.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Get rid of Eye of the Tiger and get it with a personal development book. On the other side of the coin, just to share some examples, 3rd property transaction completed for me, which was the goal, 3 properties. I went to Europe for my birthday. I bought myself a nice gift as a reward too. So I ticked a lot of boxes in that sense, financially and travel-wise, which I was happy with.
It's really interesting. One of the things that we've got in our journal, the Money and Investing journal at the start, is what your 12-month goals are. And we just clicked over, and I had a funny click over because I was away overseas at the time, and I just picked it up when I got back. And going through, just putting a line through the stuff that's been done is crazy when you actually realize what you've done. And it's so easy when you look back through the year. Changing topic ever so slightly, the weave is back on again. This is probably my theme for this year.
Sure.
If you one of the podcasts we do is a year in review, and if you don't keep detailed notes through the year, there are some monumental events that we missed in that podcast, just simply because of the volume of things that have happened. And I think the same comes to goals. If you don't articulate what it is and write down what it is you want, and more importantly, why, and what steps you're prepared to take to get there, you may well achieve them, but I just got that done, and it's almost a nothing thing that falls away. And that achievement of being able to put a line through and go, done, which I've had the pleasure of doing on quite a number of things this year, gives you so much fuel for the fight for what's next. As an achievement-driven person, certainly. What's been lacking is still, in my case, you talk about failed or missed goals, is that ability to reward myself. Actually, that's not true. I changed cars this year, which was quite a reward.
I can tell.
But by and large, it's done and move on to the next one without going through that validation process. And I do have to get better. My wife has been fantastic at coaching me through that process of you need to reward yourself for these things. And I am getting better at it. Not as good as I could or should be. And I'm okay with that. But I have actually rewarded myself with a couple of decent goals this year, which I know you have too, which is important. Some colour's good.
I tried it for the first time this year. It was pretty fun. I must admit, celebrating your wins is good. For our listeners, though, as we move forward, AB, we're ticking into 2025. So before we go through some of our own goals for this year, let's go through a structure and a process for our listeners out there. So traditional way we break it down in the Money and Investing Journal, which we suggest all of our clients should be using. I mean, I've been a loyal user of that now for 6 years or 7 years, is to break down your goals annual, quarter, monthly. What do you suggest from there?
Look, I'm going to take it a step earlier than that, before you even commit to this. And this is... We set such high standards for ourselves, and I mentioned in passing, and it's always difficult in this room when we talk about people, whether or not you mention people by name or not. And I mentioned previously a client in Sydney that health and fitness is important. I want to do a shout out to one of our clients in South Australia, being Keith Otto, who's a terrific supporter of our ecosystem. Got all the time in the world for Keith. He's a great guy. And we had a recent conversation with him at the Advanced Options Bootcamp, and talking with him, he's like finally in his mind worked out how that journal can work for him, which is great because it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be a fit for you, which is the key thing. There's no one size fits all. So let's jump back a step. One of the things I like to do is very old school, and that's just sit there with a big sheet of paper and have a download and just turn everything off and have as much time as is possible in my household with 5 kids and livestock and various other things that go on in there, and just sit and download and really almost doodle and dream, which I think when we get older, we lose a lot of the ability to dream because we become more prescribed and deliberate in our intentions, rather than you could do anything, if you could have anything, if you could be anything, which is a very youthful set of lenses to look through, which is far less cynical and far more open-minded. So, and I love doing that process. So I'll write them down and I'll just drop stuff on there, and there might be a thing that then comes off that, and then another thing that might come off that, or it might be something that's totally separate, and then go through and go, okay, well, what's going on over here, and then doodle that. And then once I've spent an hour or two just throwing all these ideas down on paper, I'll try and link them up and say, okay, well, this links to that, and that's actually really starting to appeal to me in terms of something that I think I want to do and it's important. And this over here, look, I can see that I might be interested in it. And if your response is sort of, I might be interested in it, it's not a priority. So why would you then chew up your bandwidth of the limited number of things that you can really focus on fully with stuff that may or may not mean something to you? I thought of you last night. I just had a tidy up in my office, and I like a squash court office. I just no clutter. And I moved my guitar from one corner to out of sight now. And I think, maybe 4 years ago, we talked about I'm going to learn to play the guitar, and it's just something that either I don't have the bandwidth for or the enthusiasm towards. So it's, what can I put that time toward instead that's more meaningful to me? So sometimes goals fall away, and it's not that I've given up on it. I've just reprioritized. There's a nice get out of jail card as to that which I want. And once you've got that stuff on a piece of paper, and then you start to go, okay, let's try and shortlist this a little bit. This is pre-journal. Let's shortlist it, see what links together, and then maybe start to rank it. And then at that point, I like to then translate the doodling and mess that's on that bit of paper across over then into my journal in a more formal way. And I think the advantage of doing that is that it's not fenced in. There's no structure to that. It's just a brain dump, which sometimes is where, and I've always done this sort of stuff, but you can tap into that creative flow. And then once you've got that creative stuff down on the table, only then you can start to put a framework around it, which the journal provides a beautiful one for. So that's a little tip pre-journal going through that process. What do you use when you sort of sit down and have a bit of a mull as to what's coming over the hill for the year ahead?
May sound ridiculous, but a lot of my thoughts are organised up here. Very logical thinkers. I'm able to organise my thoughts quite well. I'll then, I always work on 3 years ahead. So wherever I want to be in 3 years, I start working on goals right now. That thought, that discussion usually is had internally and also with my family. So by the time it comes around to New Year's, I know exactly in 3 years' time what I want, what I need this year to get that.
Gotcha.
That's really my thought process.
That's quite a scientific approach in many respects, and I think that notion of playing the game 3 years ahead is crucial. A dear friend of mine is very much all about that, slightly longer term in his instance as to where he's looking to go to, because the deliberate actions that you take today will nudge you ever closer to that. And if you're in mind of where you want to be, even though 3 years seems a ridiculous way away for many people, most people can't really think about what they're going to be doing at the weekend, because they're reacting to life and rather than responding and being more strategic in it. And life goes by really quickly. And if you can be very, very deliberate in your intention and actions every day, in every minute of every day to every week to every month to the quarter to the year, that's how you get stuff done. And just blowing in the wind is not the answer. You've got to have a vision, whether it's 12 months out, whether it's 3 years out, whether it's 5 or 7 years out. You've got to have a longer term eye on the prize as to what that looks like. It's crucial.
And then break it down. So, we start off with goals for this year. What do you want to achieve in 2025? And in order to get those goals, and we know that prioritizing which goals in the near term you're going to focus on is huge, because you can't do everything. Break it down. What are you doing this quarter and this month to get to that annual goal, right?
Absolutely. And in a business context, there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of people in our business, and to get the whole team rowing in the same direction, you've got to be able to communicate that, and you can't flip-flop your way through that. This week we're doing this and this week we're doing that, because you very quickly frustrate your team because they don't know where they're going. They've got to have a level of clarity. These are our milestones. We'll know when we're there, because that we've stated very, very clearly what that is. If we talk about our wealth management business, it's a funds under management figure, which we're tracking along very, very nicely for. It's a very specific, measurable goal, and every week we can count towards where we are toward that particular goal, and the team know what they've got to do to get there. So absolutely crucial.
Specific and measurable too. We use the SMART goal and an analogy: specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and time-based. If you just set a goal to be better in 2025, that doesn't mean anything, right? It's got to be an exact quantum. Otherwise, you can't measure your success or failure.
Specificity is absolutely crucial when you do these things. You've got to be able to define. It's not near enough, or it feels better, or we're definitely ahead of where we were last year. It's got to be very, very specific and, as you say, measurable. And I think goals are really dreams with deadlines. But what does it mean to achieve that? So, in a health context, what does it mean? Is it about body weight? Is it about energy? Is it about body fat? Is it about cholesterol? Is it about other things like you're engaging in a sport, your times are improving on a run, your blood pressure is lower, whatever it may be, mechanical things that you can use to measure that. Also, your well-being, how do you feel in yourself? Are you actually happy within yourself? Are examples of that. In the business context, because we're in a numbers game, it's very, very easy to metricize where we're at. This is the goal financially or numerically, what we want to get to, and we're 85% of the way there, or 92% of the way there, or beyond, or whatever it may be. But you have to know that, and then you know when it's been achieved. One of the things I think more and more I've, come to really fully appreciate is the role of habit goals versus achievement goals. And I think, if you go back to probably, and it'll be interesting to go back and have a listen to our dulcet tones 5 years ago, before we had this really nice flash studio and our production team and whatnot. I think we had a little joke that we had a couple of clip-on mics and
in the boardroom
and an iPhone recording the whole thing. Is that I suspect you'll find that there was more of an emphasis put toward achievement goals in doing that, and in reality, the thing the point I'm trying to make is that habits are the things that determine where you're going to end up, whether they be good habits or bad habits, and all they're going to be is an amplification of you either achieving it or being further away from it. And so when I look at my journal, I spend much, much more time now working on my habit goals and really thinking about them and what they mean and how I'm going to actually account for it than I do on the achievement goals, because I know from experience that the achievement goal is very, very likely to fall out of the habit goal. If I hit the habit goal, as sure as day follows night, the achievement will happen.
That's right.
Whatever it may be. But if I neglect that habit, it ain't going to happen.
Well, habits is what gets you to anything, really, doesn't it? That's how you define everything.
Yeah, and it can be as ruthless on yourself as you want to be, or as soft as you want to go on yourself, depending on where you're at in the journey and your personality type. So, if I talk about exercise, and as I say, I most certainly missed my mark this year to date. I now have a different way of classifying what I've done. So if it's a gym day, it's a G. If it's a swim, it's an S. If it's a farm day for me, so I put in 8-9 hours outside on the farm, chainsawing or doing something like that. I've now got
super physical.
So instead of it being a missed day of exercise, actually it's just qualified in a different way.
Yeah.
Or walk, if Thursdays, my wife and I go for a walk up to the lighthouse in Byron, and that's in there. So I've got different ways of qualifying that. And what I now find is that I'm not breaking the chain, because there are days where I don't necessarily get on my bike or do stuff that I want to do in the gym, but I'm still doing activity which kicks in towards my exercise type goal. I've just had a little bit more travel this year, which has probably blown me a little away from where I want to be. So that's focusing on that habit, for example, has been really important. A less stringent way would do that is a really simple, at the end of the day, did you get your stuff done that you set out to do? And if you did, you get a tick, and if you didn't, you get a cross. In other words, was it a positive or negative day towards achieving your goal? And that might seem harsh in that if you've got everything done, that's a positive kicker. And if you didn't get everything, it's a negative. And the reason it's a negative is you've got one day less in your life to kick the goal that you've set out. So you've actually moved further away from it, and you can't have X's day after day after day. You might have an X 1 or 2 days, but don't let that momentum build up. Don't break the chain, as we say.
That's right. So for our listeners out there, AB, before we wrap up, what are some goals from you this year in 2025, and why?
I think business goal-wise, we've got a very, very clear plan laid out, and I think there are two products that we've got sitting in the wings. Obviously, one is financial planning, which we launched this year, and then scaling that out. And secondly, is the advisory space on your side. In fact, the project you're going to be running, which is effectively my trading advisor, which is a monster of a project, which
can't wait.
Will take up some of your bandwidth, I'm sure. So they're really interesting to see where we sit, in a year's time when we look at that. I think this year we've done some big things. Like we moved as well, which is another thing we didn't talk about. Some of the things that we've achieved through the year, and we've got a great team of people that are all pulling so well. So there's everything behind us to be able to do that. The habits, the technology, the support, everything's all there for that. On a personal note, possible adventure in the property space. I certainly hope Italy is concluded, but that's out of my control at this point in time. I'm reliant on the other side of that negotiation, and I reckon I'll end up getting that sorted out.
I know you in negotiations, you tend to win.
It's in another language with different lawyers. It's a chat and lots of different legislation there, but it's a lot of fun. Closer to home, I'm actually looking at doing another property build
nice.
Locally.
Exciting.
I've got my on a particular block of dirt, very close to where we are now, and I think I must be a frustrated builder to want to go through this process again. And again, that's probably a 3-year project. So if that moves forward, which is contingent on a couple of things, I want to really get my teeth into that particular project. Personally, I find that massively satisfying. It's a new family home, so it ticks a lot of values, with being able to provide an amazing environment for my family. So it does tick a lot of boxes for me, certainly doing that. And, it gives me, it's something tangible. And that's the interesting thing. The business we're in, which is the money business, there's a number on a spreadsheet or a bank balance, which is great, don't get me wrong, but there's not a lot of tangibility to that. And I think sometimes when you've got something that you physically can show for that which you do is key. On the health and fitness side, I've got to get some surgery on my knee, which is a question mark over whether this is a realistic goal. But one of the things I'm working towards, as you know, is an endurance 24-hour event, which we really want to get behind as a business to sponsor and create some awareness for something. And I'd really love to see us drop that one in going into the end of the winter this year. So I've got
Exciting.
6 months up my sleeve to get that one pulled off.
Very nice.
How about yourself?
A couple of personal goals. Money-wise, I want to have a really decent crack at getting my mortgage paid off personally. I've got my 3 properties now, one of which I live in, and the goal in 3 years' time is to have that completely squared off, debt-free. So that's your bad
debt gone, effectively, or it's not even bad debt, it's an asset, but it's not an investment asset.
That's right. The investment properties pay for themselves. My mortgage, I want done in 3 years, so I'll be very much so attacking that pretty aggressively. Personal-wise, another trip to Europe with my partner. We had such a great time last year, and it was an amazing realization for us that there's a lot more in life out there. So I think we'll aim to do that every single year until such times that there might be kids, for example, down the track.
Don't let that stop you. I mean, I drag my army around Europe. It's okay.
Yeah, different kind of trip for us, though, at this stage anyway.
Yeah, it'll be slightly less hedonistic. There's a few moving parts here. We've got a honeymoon thrown in there too.
No, not yet. No talk of that yet. But I thought, make hay while the sun shines. We're young in a good spot, so let's do it. And then thirdly, one of my most important ones is a mate of mine actually just ran a marathon over in New Zealand about, say, a month ago. And his goal was to run a sub 3 hour marathon, which for anyone in that space will know that is flying. And he ran 3 hours and 2 minutes. And I said, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same marathon. We're going to run it together, and we're going to run a sub 3 hour marathon together. So we've now committed, and we're going to, start training together in the new year to really run that sub 3. And that to me will just be the ultimate success if we could both do that.
So I think having an accountability buddy, which in that instance is a huge thing when it comes to goals, because it's you versus that thing you write down on a piece of paper that, I'm going to do this because of X, Y, and Z. This is how I'm going to do it. This is why I'm going to do it. And this is how I'm going to reward myself when it's done. That's still you and that bit of paper. When you've got somebody else involved in that decision with you, oftentimes we'll do more for somebody else in life than we will for ourselves. And so having a training buddy and a racing buddy is a great way to assure that you don't, and I know how competitive you are too, so I can imagine that's very likely to become a reality, even though it's a huge goal. It's a big achievement. And I think that comes down to a lot of what we do with our clients. You're not on your own. If you've set financial goals to achieve something, the accountability, you can have that. You can dial into our team, and we're here to help hold you accountable and to coach you, if you will, to avoid the pitfalls that you could make that blow you off course. And I can't encourage enough for our clients to reach out to us and say, look, I want to be held accountable to this. What do I need to do next? And there are various things, of course, that we can do in this space. And life is a blank canvas if you want it to be, and you can color it in with whatever you feel is important to you, and don't be afraid to do that. Yet we're so oftentimes hung up about perfection, and it's got to be right, and what if I get it wrong? Who cares if you didn't read 12? You read 9 books, which is more than what you did the previous year, so it's an improvement, so it's a fail forward. That's how you have to view life, I think. And once you start to take those shackles of what if it goes wrong off, and just go, I'm having a red hot crack at this, and if it works out, that's amazing. And you know something, even if I fall short, that's a big improvement on where I'm at, is insane. And I'll cap this off, the weave off with this one.
Okay.
So I was having lunch with my wife the other day, and it was our 11th wedding anniversary, and we're sat there having a chat and about not dissimilar things. What's been good this year, and what are some of the highlights out of our marriage? And it was kids, and we built a different home in a different state and moved there, and lots of other different things in that, and a lot of travel and all that sort of stuff. And then we just got into a bit deeper in life, and I said, did you expect to be here at this age where you're at? And she said, absolutely. I never had a doubt in my mind I'd be where I am at. And my wife's an overachiever, rather like yourself. In sport, in music, in her chosen career path, and as a mother, and I'd say as a wife too. And she said, how about you? And I said, no, not at all. I never expect. I thought I'd be okay, but I never expected to be where I'm at today. Never in a million years. And she said, why is that? I said, I back myself. I'm a smart person. But there are certain things, particularly in the recent year or so, that have sort of clicked over that are beyond where my expectations were. And I've run the risk, I think, of playing it safe now. And I don't want to play it safe because I've never done that in my life. I think there's such a world of opportunity that's out there that people are too scared to have a go at. I'm not talking about being reckless. There's a difference here. And I think this is going to be a really different mindset that I take into this year, in terms of how I want to approach a number of different things, which is with that shackles off, courageous, we're just doing this, and come what may, come on the journey with us or don't, but it's happening. And I think for our clients, we've got so many great things up our sleeve for how we want to launch in the new year. I think 25 is going to be one for the record books.
All right, we'll pencil it in because I'm on for the ride, AB. Thank you very much.
It's going to be a great time, and I'm looking forward to it. You don't want to wish your life away, but I can't wait for this to get stuck in and make it happen.
Well, I mean, start of season 7. We'll look back as we venture into season 6 right now, which, by the way, is another congratulations to you and to us both. I mean, this is 5 seasons completed, basically.
You're never going to do something every week.
We have not missed for 5 years.
Never break the chain. Start monthly and go for it. You're never going to do every week. Well, here we are. We're living proof we have. That's 5 years down. give us a review and a rating. I need you to give us a review and a rating because that's the thing that puts fuel in the tank for us. So take a moment after this podcast to do that unashamed plug. Give us a review, guys.
And before you go to AB, from our listeners, if they're comfortable with it, let's hear about some of their most audacious goals they've got for 2025. Post it in the comments. We want to see what you guys are up to.
That's accountability because you're putting it out there. And in the nicest possible way, we'll help hold you accountable to give you the future you deserve for sure.
Done. Thanks, AB.
Great chat as always, and Happy New Year, my friend. There you have it, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, hit the notification button, and we'll look forward to hosting you next week.